hello everyone. We are from group 2 and we got material about macro and micro linguistic from the articles. So before we start our presentation, let me introduce ourselves first. Next slide, please. My name is Gusti Agung Indira Pradnyaswari with student ID number 2212021141. And my friends,
My name is Putu Savita Raditya Putri with student ID 22120211109 and my friend.
My name is Putu Desi Tresnayanti with student ID 22120211119 and my friend.
My name is Yesaya Klose with the student identity number is 2212021139.
So the table of content from our presentation today is the first we will talk about macro linguistic and the second one is about micro linguistic. Macro linguistic including interdisciplinary and intradisciplinary. The interdisciplinary including sociolinguistic, psycholinguistic, neurolinguistic, stylistic, cognitive linguistic, geographical linguistic, and computational linguistic. The intradisciplinary, including the applied, theoretical, historical, descriptive, and comparative. And about the microlinguistic, it including the pure linguistic with their part, phonetics, phonology, morphology, semantics, pragmatics, and syntax. So I will describe about the macrolinguistic. Macrolinguistic is the study of language that takes a broad view of language and its structure from a social, cultural, psychological, and neurological perspective. Macrolinguistic are divided into two parts, which are interdisciplinary linguistic and intradisciplinary linguistic. What is interdisciplinary linguistic? Interdisciplinary linguistics examines the complexity of language used in daily communication within various social and cultural contexts. First part of interdisciplinary linguistics is sociolinguistic. Sociolinguistics is generally used to study about relationship between society and language, including culture norms, expectation, and context on the language it uses. It influences on the choice of sounds, grammatical elements, and vocabulary items because of such factors as age, sex, education, occupation, race, and peer group identification, among others. The example of sociolinguistic is when we try to get other people attention, so we will do something like the example, maybe if we want to try to get other people attention, we will call them or ask something to them. Maybe the example is like, hi Desi, how are you? So Desi will respond it, and there will be a social interaction between me and Desi. The second part of interdisciplinary linguistics is the psycholinguistic. Psycholinguistic deals with a study of mental aspect of language and speech. Psycholinguistic also refers to the study how mind process and produce the language. The example is how the study about how the baby or the children try to learn and understand about their language, especially like their mother language from they born uh, kids until they kids. Next one is the neurolinguistic. Neurolinguistic is the study that focus on understanding how and where our brains retain the knowledge of the language we speak, as well as how language is represented in the brain. It focuses on what occurs in our brains when we learn a language and what occurs when we use this information. The example is when we the example is like an apple. When uh, imagine about an apple, uh, we will know about how the apple tastes and what color the apple is. So it so the apple is one of the example of neurolinguistic, and even though we not eat that apple fruit, so we can know it. Next slide, please. And the other interdisciplinary linguistic part is stylistic. Stylistic is an interdisciplinary field of linguistics that deals with the study and interpretation of style and tones in both written and spoken language. The example of interdisciplinary linguistic of stylistic is the way how someone promote their advertisement, like when a shop or a seller offer their product, so they will use some language expression like hello miss or mister, this product is good for you. We will give you special price, and we will give you discount if you want to buy our product, like maybe buy two get one, or get some discount like 30 or until 50% discount on each product. So that's about my materials. The next material will be presented by my friend Yuda. Thank you.
Thank you for the given opportunity to me, Gung Indira. Now we are going to talk about the cognitive linguistic. So cognitive linguistic is an interdisciplinary field of linguistics that explores the relationship between the language, the thought, and the culture. It views language as a cognitive process rather than a static set of rules, and it emphasizes the importance of embodied experience in shaping language use and understanding. So one example of a cognitive linguistic theory is the concept of prototypes. We need to underline prototypes. According to this theory, people have mental representations of categories that are based on a typical or idealized member of that category, or it's known as a prototype. For example, when people think of the category fruit, they may have a mental prototype that includes characteristics such as being sweet, edible, and grown on trees or bushes. This prototype influences how people categorize and understand different types of fruit, as well as how they use the language to talk about them. Now, next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Now we jump to the geographical linguistic in kind of a interdisciplinary linguistic. So geographical linguistic is an interdisciplinary field of linguistics that studies the relationship between language and geography. It examines how language varies and changes across different regions and how this variation is influenced by factors such as geography, climate, migration, and contact with other languages. So one example of a geographical linguistic study is the investigation of dialects. we need to underline dialects. Dialects are regional or social varieties of a language that differ in pronunciation, in vocabulary, and grammar from the standard language. Geographical linguistics study the distribution and characteristic of dialects in different regions, as well as the historical and social factors that have influenced their development. Now we are moved into the computational linguistics. Computational linguistics is an interdisciplinary field of linguistics that uses computational and mathematical methods to study language. It also involves the development of computer algorithms and the model to analyze the process and generate natural language data. One example of computational linguistics is natural language processing, or NLP. NLP involves developing algorithms and models to enable computer to understand and generate human language. NLP has many applications, such as speech recognition, machine translation, text classification, sentiment analysis, and also information retrieval. For example, a search engine that uses NLP might analyze the text of a web page to understand its content and context. And then NLP also provides relevant search results based on the user's query. Another example is a voice assistant that uses NLP to recognize spoken comments and generate appropriate responses. Next slide, please. Now we are going to the intradisciplinary linguistic. We are going to the applied linguistic in intradisciplinary linguistic. Applied linguistic is a field of linguistics that focuses on the practical application of language research and theory to real-world problems. It involves the study of language used in different contexts and the development of language-related interventions and solutions. One example of applied linguistics is language teaching and learning. Applied linguists study the cognitive, social, and cultural factors that influence language acquisition and use, and also to develop methods and materials to facilitate language learning. For another example, an applied linguist might have developed a language curriculum for a school or design language assessment tools to measure students' proficiency. Next slide, please. Now we are jump into the theoretical linguistic. Theoretical linguistic is an interdisciplinary field of linguistics that seeks to develop models and theories of language structure and use. It involves the study of the underlying principles and rules that govern language, as well as the cognitive processes that enable people to produce and understand language. One example of theoretical linguistics is syntax. Syntax is the study of the structure of sentences and phrases in language. Theoretical syntaxians aim to develop models that explain how words are combined to form sentences and how different sentence structures are related to each other. For example, a theoretical linguist might study the relationship between syntax and semantics, investigating how the meaning of a sentence is related to its grammatical structure. For the next presentation, I give back to the moderator.
Thank you, Yuda. So we have historical linguistics. Historical linguistics is concerned with the theory of language change over time. Why and how language develop, change in a particular language's history of the words. So basically, historical linguistics is the study of how language change over time, subsumes both the general study of language change and the history of specific language and language families. For the example, earlier forms of Germanic languages such as German, English, and Swedish were dialects of Proto-Germanic, while earlier forms of Romance languages such as Spanish, French, and Italian were dialects of Latin. Furthermore, earlier forms of Proto-Germanic and Latin were once dialects of Indo-European. Next slide. Next, we have descriptive linguistics. So, descriptive linguistics is concerned with the descriptions and analysis of the ways in which a language operates and is used by a given set of speakers at a given time. So, descriptive linguistics investigates the form and the function of language, applying theoretical approaches to the analysis of descriptive and sociolinguistic data. For the example, a linguist who hears an English speaker say, "Where we at?" and tries to better understand why this type of structure of sentence has been used by the speaker. Next slide, please. Comparative linguistics. Comparative linguistics is the study of differences and similarities between languages. It's particularly focused on the comparison of related languages. So, comparative linguistic, in the relevant sense, is the study of linguistic relatedness, that is to say, of genetic ancestral connection and related matters of subgrouping extending to the reconstructions of untested ancestral languages or proto-languages. For the example, an American English speaker may use such form as "he don't know anything" or "he doesn't know anything." It's depending on such consideration as his level of education, race, social class, or the effect he wishes to produce on the person he is addressing. Next slide, please. So, microlinguistic. Microlinguistic is the study of the characteristic, organization, and functions of the language. Microlinguistic is the study of language in a more detailed and specific manner. Next slide, please. Pure linguistic. So, the concept of pure linguistic is concerned with the study of the formal properties of language and the rules that govern its use. It provides a foundation for understanding the structure of language and the ways in which it can be analyzed and described. So, pure linguistic is the scientific study of the structure and development of language in general or of the particular languages. For the next material, we present by my friends. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you for the given opportunity. I will continue this presentation with one of the pure linguistic parts. The first one is phonetics. Phonetics generally studies the characteristics of speech sound. It deals with three functions: articulation, transmissions, and the receptions of speech sound. There are three main points of phonetics. The first one is articulatory phonetic. It is the study of the productions or articulations of speech sounds. The second one is acoustic phonetics. It is a study of acoustic characteristics of speech as the transmissions of sound waves. The last one is auditory phonetics, which deals with the perceptions via ear of speech sounds. The example of phonetics is the pronunciation of an alphabet Z or S. Our vocal vibrates when we pronounce Z, but not when we pronounce S. The next one is phonology. Phonology is the study of how speech sound function in a language and the way speech sounds are organized. For instance, the word leaf, you may found one of the sound is silent, and that word you can combine it with her, so you can say live her. We're moving on to morphology. Morphology is a study of words formation, how they are formed, and what is their relation to other words in the same language. It analyzes the structure of words and part of words, such as stems, root words, prefixes, and suffixes. The example of morphology is the word constitutional. It is composed of the stem word constitute and the inflectional noun suffix ion and the inflectional adjective suffix a and l. Next one is semantics. Semantics is the study It is a branch of linguistics that is concerned with the study of meaning in all its formal aspect. Words. Example is the word destination and the last stop. Those two words have the same meanings, but for people who study semantics, they analyze the subtle meaning behind the words. Moving on to pragmatics. Pragmatics deals with the utterances, by which we will mean specific events, the intentional acts of speaker at times and places, typically involving language. The example of pragmatics is when someone asks, where do you want to go for the weekend? And the other person answer, going to the beach will be fun. The person who answered didn't explicitly said that the answer that he want to go to the beach, but he is implying that going to the beach will be fun. The last one is syntax. Syntax is the grammar of sentence construction. It's the study of word relationship that result in the grammatical sentences. It deals with the combinations of words into phrases, clauses, and sentences. It is a grammar of sentence construction. The example of syntax is the sentence, I am reading. You cannot say reading I am, or am reading I, or etc. I think that's all from me. I will give back to the moderator to continue this presentation.
Okay, thanks for Savita for presenting the materials. So this is the list of sources that we use for that we use for our presentation. You can see the source on the screen. So that's all about our team presentation. Thank you for your attention, and we are so sorry if there are some mistake. So thanks for watching and have a good day.